The producer price index just surged a record amount, stoking inflation fears. This comes as a billionaire hedge fund manager says he's keeping a close eye on what the Fed is going to say. A hospital in Texas is at the center of the debate around vaccine mandates. Over 100 employees filed a lawsuit, but the district judge dismissed it. Now they're appealing the dismissal. And a rural Nevada county passed a resolution declaring that it will defend citizens against unconstitutional acts by federal or state authorities. The declaration springs from a movement to protect Americans' constitutional freedoms. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Is inflation on the rise? Some signs seem to point in that direction. The producer price index, which tracks how much money domestic producers get for their products, just jumped by a lot. It jumped 0.8% in May. Put together with the previous 11 months, it amounts to a 6.6% rise since last May. That's the largest 12-month increase on record since 2010. Even when adjusted to remove more volatile prices like food and energy, it still equals a record 5.3% spike. Economists say it's due to rising demand from the economy reopening and shortages in supply chains. Others say it's because of the extremely loose monetary policy. That also means almost everything is going to cost more. Billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones tells CNBC he is going to keep a close eye on the Fed to see if they acknowledge higher inflation. The Fed has been quashing inflation fears, instead saying transitory inflation can be a good thing. But Jones disagrees. He tells CNBC, quote, "The idea that inflation is transitory to me, that one just doesn't work the way I see the world." He says if the Fed does acknowledge inflation is going up, then he would, quote, buy commodities, buy crypto, buy gold. The Fed's two-day policy meeting is set to wrap up on Wednesday, and the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, is set to hold a news conference. That's after the central bank releases its statement that day. And this comes after the U.S. Consumer Price Index, or CPI, was up 5% compared to a year ago. The cost of living went up again in May, pushing the inflation rate to a 13-year high. There are differing opinions on what's behind the rising prices. Some say supply chain issues are pushing up costs for producers who are passing those costs on to consumers. But some economists say that even materials not facing supply chain problems are more expensive. Others say simply because inflation was lower last year during lockdowns, this year's readings will inevitably be higher. This is called the base effect. And others say low interest rates and unprecedented levels of money printing by the central bank and government over the past year has devalued the dollar, as more money is now chasing after the same basket of goods. Now, let's turn to the debate around vaccine mandates. Hospital workers are appealing a ruling that dismissed their lawsuit against the hospital's vaccine mandate. U.S. District Judge Lynn Hughes in Texas dismissed a lawsuit on June 12th. Over 100 employees at the Houston Methodist Hospital filed a lawsuit. They sought to block the hospital's vaccine mandate. The lawyer representing the plaintiffs in the suit, Jared Woodfill, tells the Epoch Times, "We are taking it all the way to the Supreme Court," adding this is just one battle and a longer war to protect the rights of employees to be free from being forced to participate in a vaccine trial as a condition for employment. He goes on to say if this ruling is allowed to stand, employers across the country will be able to force their employees to participate in a vaccine trial as a condition for employment. This legal battle has only just begun. He believes they will win and the hospital will be held accountable. But he notes, quote, "Sometimes the wheels of justice move slower than we like." The judge wrote that firing the employees as a result of their refusal to take the shots wouldn't amount to a wrongful termination. That's in the dismissal. And that's after the lead plaintiff in the suit, Jennifer Bridges, accused the hospital of forcing her to be injected with a vaccine or be fired. The judge who dismissed the suit disagrees. She says this is not coercion. Methodist is trying to do their business of saving lives without giving them the COVID-19 virus. Bridges can freely choose to accept or refuse a COVID-19 vaccine. However, if she refuses, she will simply need to work somewhere else. adding if a worker refuses an assignment, changed office, earlier start time, or other directive, he may be properly fired. Every employment includes limits on the worker's behavior in exchange for his remuneration. This is all part of the bargain. Under Texas law, an employee is considered to have been wrongfully terminated if fired solely for refusing to perform an illegal act. So what is the hospital's policy? The hospital announced the vaccination mandate on April 1st for more than 25,000 of its employees. They were to get the shot before June 7th. Houston Methodist Hospital was the first hospital system in the country to do so. Other major healthcare centers followed suit. Exemptions would be based only on a medical condition, such as pregnancy, determined or sincerely held religious beliefs. By June 8th, almost all were fully vaccinated. 285 employees received a medical or religious exemption, while 332 were granted deferrals for pregnancy or other reasons. The 178 who either chose not to get a vaccine or who weren't fully vaccinated were suspended for 14 days without pay. The suspended workers would be fired if they didn't get fully vaccinated by the end of the suspension period. The patients argue in the lawsuit it is unlawful for their employers to require them to take the shots, saying the vaccines are experimental and they don't want to be, quote, guinea pigs. From the hospital's view, the employees are endangering their patients. CEO of the system, Mark Boom, wrote to the Epoch Times, the small percentage of employees who did not comply with the policy have decided not to put their patients first. Adding, it is unfortunate that the few remaining employees who refuse to get vaccinated and put our patients first are responding in this way. It is legal for healthcare institutions to mandate vaccines, as we have done with the flu vaccine since 2009. A hospital spokesman cited the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC's new guidance on vaccine mandates in late May. The CEO went on to say, we only wish them well and thank them for their past service in our community, and we must respect the decision they made, adding he is proud of the employees who chose to get fully vaccinated. So what are the plaintiffs arguing? 117 of them sued the hospital in late May. It is unclear if they are all suspended or fired. They say that through the vaccine mandate, the hospital was forcing employees to be human guinea pigs as a condition for continued employment, and they were forced to participate in a human trial for the vaccines since the shots are only being allowed under an emergency use authorization. Lead plaintiff Jennifer Bridges explains to the Epoch Times their reasoning, saying that hospital workers have seen numerous patients who have suffered adverse reactions after getting a vaccine. They also saw a number of so-called breakthrough cases. That's people who get the virus even though they are fully vaccinated. Bridges says, so it doesn't protect you from getting or spreading COVID, and the likelihood of a severe adverse reaction is happening a lot right now. So your risk versus the benefits just don't weigh out. So we are not comfortable because we don't want to risk our lives or our future over getting this vaccine that doesn't even work. She also pointed to the growing body of research that indicates that people who have had the virus enjoy natural immunity against the illness. She argues most of us have already had COVID, so this vaccine does absolutely no good because we already have our own antibodies for it. Another plaintiff is Bob Nevins. He's a former Houston Methodist employee. He tells the Epoch Times, I was a 10-year highly decorated employee who was very well respected until I made a decision to wait until these vaccines complete their clinical trials. So what is the federal policy? The Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, issued new guidance in May. They say businesses can require that their employees get the vaccine without violating federal law. It states federal EEO laws do not prevent an employer from requiring all employees physically entering the workplace to be vaccinated for COVID-19, as long as they don't violate the Americans with Disabilities Act or Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prevents discrimination. They can require vaccines, but state and local laws can impact whether or not businesses can issue these requirements. But employers will also have to make reasonable accommodations for workers who can't or won't get vaccinated due to religious reasons, pregnancy, or a disability. And now before we end, a rural Nevada county passed a resolution declaring that it will defend citizens against unconstitutional acts by federal or state authorities. The county, Elko County in Nevada, passed a resolution. It declares a list of abuses that will not be tolerated, including violations of citizen rights to worship and bear arms. The county commissioner proposed a resolution in the county. He tells the Epoch Times, "We are slipping quickly from the republic of our founding into a dictatorship." He says Americans are losing their freedoms, citing the executive orders given during the pandemic as an example of unconstitutional rule. The declarations come from a movement started by retired Sheriff Richard Mack. Mack is known for opposing gun control laws that required law enforcement to run and pay for background checks. He took the case to the Supreme Court and won. Mack now leads the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He tells the Epoch Times the people of these counties and their elected officials have had it up to here with unconstitutional dictates and mandates. He says that elected officials and law enforcement need to protect the freedoms given to Americans by the Constitution. Mack says this is the peaceful and effective solution millions of Americans have been praying for to take back America county by county and state by state. Mack says Elko County is just the beginning. Multiple sources tell the Epoch Times that other counties are seriously considering joining the movement. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.